Across the galaxy, there exists a truth that every advanced civilization learns: war is predictable. Fleets engage at maximum range, battles are decided by numbers and technology, and conflicts end when one side's industrial capacity crumbles. For 10,000 years, the hegemony has conquered star systems with this mathematical certainty, reducing entire species to servitude through overwhelming force and superior firepower. But mathematics assumes all variables are known. When humanity's first colony ship limped into hegemony space, damaged and defenseless, the alien overlords saw nothing more than another primitive species ripe for subjugation. The humans' primitive nuclear weapons and chemical rockets seemed laughably obsolete compared to plasma cannons and faster-than-light battlecruisers. Their military doctrine appeared suicidal, their tactics chaotic, and their technology centuries behind galactic standards. The hegemony's supreme commander, Vextar, had conquered 47 species. He knew exactly how this would end. Humanity would surrender after the first demonstration of superior firepower, as all rational beings did. But Vextar had never encountered a species that viewed certain death not as defeat, but as the opening move. He had never faced beings who considered impossible odds not as a reason to surrender, but as a challenge to overcome. And he had certainly never imagined that somewhere in the vast cosmos, there existed creatures so utterly, magnificently insane that they would charge into battle against gods themselves if it meant protecting what they loved. The hegemony was about to discover that humans don't just fight wars, they rewrite the very definition of what war can be. And this is only the beginning. The bridge of the HSS New Horizon hummed with the desperate energy of a dying ship. Captain Sarah Chen watched the cascading system failures paint themselves across her command screens in angry red displays. 3 months into humanity's first interstellar colonization mission, and they were already facing extinction in the cold void between stars. "Engineering report," she called out, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's face appeared on the comm screen, streaked with oil and exhaustion. "Main drive is completely fried, Captain. Whatever that energy surge was when we dropped out of FTL, it cooked half our systems. We've got maybe 6 hours of life support left, and that's if we shut down everything non-essential." Chen nodded grimly. Behind her, the colony ship's observation deck held 12,000 sleeping colonists in cryostasis, dreaming of the new world they might never see. Each represented humanity's best and brightest: scientists, engineers, teachers, artists, and families brave enough to venture into the unknown. She would not let them become humanity's first casualties among the stars. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Park called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "I'm picking up multiple contacts on long-range sensors. They're big. And they're heading straight for us." The main screen flickered to life, showing the approaching fleet. Even damaged sensors could capture the sheer scale of the alien vessels. Massive dreadnoughts, each easily 5 times the size of the New Horizon, moved in perfect formation through space. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb and reflect starlight in impossible ways. 15 ships, Park reported, his voice barely a whisper. Each one could probably crack a moon in half. Chen felt her heart sink, but kept her expression neutral. She had served in Earth's space navy for 20 years, rising through the ranks during humanity's expansion into the Sol system. She had faced pirates, terrorist cells, and even a brief civil war on Mars. But this was different. This was first contact, and humanity was about to meet its galactic neighbors while completely defenseless. "Any response to our distress beacon?" she asked. "Nothing on standard frequencies." "Wait." Park pressed his earpiece closer, frowning in concentration. "I'm getting something. It's not audio, it's being transmitted directly into our computer systems. Some kind of universal translation protocol." The screen changed, displaying text in perfect English: "Primitive vessel. You have entered hegemony space without authorization. Prepare to be boarded and processed. Resistance will result in immediate termination." The bridge fell silent. Chen stared at the message, her mind racing through options. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, and it was with what appeared to be a militaristic empire that viewed them as trespassers. "Captain," Park said quietly, "I'm also detecting energy signatures consistent with weapons charging. Lots of them." Chen made her decision.
Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open, ma'am. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human colonial ship New Horizon. We are not invaders or raiders.
We are colonists seeking a new home after our planet's resources became strained.
Our ship is severely damaged, and we have 12,000 civilians aboard, including children. We request assistance and safe passage to continue our journey. The response came swiftly. Your species designation is unknown. Your technology is primitive. Your vessel is suitable only for salvage. Prepare for processing. One of the alien ships broke formation, accelerating toward them.
As it drew closer, the sensors revealed its true enormity, nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapon systems that could vaporize the New Horizon without effort. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. I've managed to get the point defense grid online, but it's running on backup power. Maybe 10 minutes of operation before it drains our remaining batteries.
Chen almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Their entire defensive capability would barely scratch the paint on one of those alien behemoths.
But she had not brought 12,000 people across interstellar space to surrender without a fight.
All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship-wide comm. We are being approached by hostile alien forces.
All able-bodied crew and colonists are to report to emergency stations.
We will not go quietly into the night.
The alien ship was close enough now that they could see details through the viewports. Its hull was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow, as if the metal itself was alive.
Weapon ports opened along its flanks like the eyes of some cosmic predator.
Ma'am, Park said urgently, they're scanning us.
Deep penetration scans.
They're mapping our entire ship structure. Chen watched as the alien vessel positioned itself directly above the New Horizon. She could see smaller craft launching from its belly, boarding pods, most likely.
In minutes, alien soldiers would be cutting through their hull.
Rodriguez, can you give me one last surprise? She asked.
What did you have in mind, Captain? Chen's smile was cold as space itself. Remember the Alamo Protocol from the Academy? The theoretical last resort scenario?
There was a pause.
Ma'am, that's never been tested on a real ship. The radiation alone could kill everyone aboard.
Better than slavery or death at alien hands.
How long would it take to implement? 10 minutes to jury-rig the necessary connections. But, Captain, if we overload the reactor like that? I know exactly what happens, Rodriguez.
The question is whether we want to die on our knees or standing up. Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered as the first boarding pod attached itself to the hull. The sound of cutting equipment echoed through the bulkheads.
Time's up, Chen said.
All hands, prepare to repel boarders.
And, Rodriguez? Start that overload sequence.
The hull breach alarm began to wail as the aliens cut through their defenses. Chen drew her sidearm, a primitive chemical projectile weapon that would probably bounce off alien armor like raindrops. But, it was what humanity had, and she would use it. The first alien soldiers through the breach were unlike anything from Earth's imagination. They stood 3 meters tall on 4 legs, their bodies covered in what appeared to be living armor that pulsed with inner light. Multiple arms ended in weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their heads were elongated, with clusters of sensory organs that tracked independently.
Holy hell, someone whispered.
The lead alien raised one of its weapons, pointing it at Chen.
When it spoke, the universal translator made its voice sound almost bored. Surrender your command codes. Your species will be processed efficiently if you comply.
Chen raised her pistol, knowing it was futile but unwilling to back down.
The only thing you're going to process is this.
The alien's weapon charged with a high-pitched whine. Around the bridge, her crew had taken cover behind consoles, their own weapons drawn. 12 humans against what appeared to be a platoon of alien super soldiers. The odds were impossible.
The outcome was predetermined. Chen should have been terrified.
Instead, she found herself grinning.
You know what the funny thing is? She called out to the alien commander. You think this is over? You think you've won because you have bigger guns and better armor?
The alien tilted its head, clearly confused by her attitude.
But, you don't understand humans, Chen continued. We've been fighting impossible odds since we first stood upright on an African savanna. We've faced ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events.
And, every single time, we've not just survived, we've gotten stronger. The alien's weapon powered down slightly, as if it was genuinely curious about this strange response to certain defeat.
And, the really funny part?
Chen's grin widened.
You think this ship is all we have? You think we're alone out here?
That was a lie, of course. The New Horizon was humanity's only interstellar vessel.
But, the alien didn't know that. Rodriguez, she called out without taking her eyes off the alien commander, how's that overload coming?
Ready when you are, Captain.
But, I should mention, I've been running some calculations.
If we vent the reactor explosion through the main engine nozzles and time it just right, we might be able to take one of their ships with us.
The alien commander's stance shifted, its weapons coming back to full charge. It spoke rapidly into what appeared to be a communication device.
Problem is, Chen continued conversationally, you've made a fundamental error in judgment. You assumed we'd act rationally.
You assumed we'd choose survival over defiance.
But, you see, there's something you should know about humans.
The ship shuddered again as more boarding pods attached.
The aliens were clearly taking the situation more seriously now. We're completely insane, Chen finished.
And, we're very, very good at making everyone regret underestimating us.
The alien raised its weapon toward her, but, before it could fire, Rodriguez's voice echoed through the ship, reactor overload in T-minus 60 seconds.
All hands, brace for impact. The alien commander's posture changed dramatically.
It began speaking rapidly into its communication device, clearly reporting to its superiors. Within seconds, an energy field surrounded Chen and her crew, some kind of protective barrier. Fascinating, the alien said, its translated voice now carrying a note of genuine interest.
Your species exhibits unprecedented irrationality. You would truly destroy yourselves rather than submit?
In a heartbeat, Chen replied.
And, that's just one ship. Wait until you meet our navy.
Another lie, but the alien didn't need to know that.
The countdown continued. 30 seconds to reactor overload. Suddenly, the alien commander barked orders to its troops.
They began withdrawing toward their boarding pods with surprising speed. Wait, Chen called out, confused by this unexpected retreat. The alien commander paused at the breach. Your species is too unpredictable to process using standard protocols. We will relay your unique characteristics to High Command. They will determine the appropriate response to a species that prefers mutual destruction to rational surrender.
20 seconds, Rodriguez announced. The last alien disappeared into its boarding pod.
Chen watched through the viewports as the alien ships withdrew to a safer distance, clearly not wanting to be caught in the explosion.
Rodriguez, abort the overload, Chen ordered. Ma'am? You heard me. Shut it down. The countdown stopped at 15 seconds.
The ship's systems slowly returned to their normal, damaged state. Chen holstered her weapon and walked to the viewport, staring out at the alien fleet now holding position at what they clearly considered a safe distance.
Captain, Park said quietly, I'm receiving another transmission. Put it through. The alien commander's voice filled the bridge, Human Chen. Your species has been classified as anomalous threat level pending review. You will remain in this position while High Command determines the appropriate response. Any attempt to leave this area will result in immediate termination. The channel closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Well, Chen said finally, that went better than expected. Better? Park squeaked. Captain, we just threatened to blow ourselves up and, somehow that's better?
Chen turned to face her crew, her expression thoughtful.
Think about it.
They had us completely outgunned, outnumbered, and helpless. They could have simply taken what they wanted and disposed of us.
But they didn't. She gestured toward the alien fleet. Instead, they're keeping their distance and calling for backup. Why?
Because we showed them something they've never encountered before, a species that would rather die than submit. And that scared them. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the calm. "Captain, I've been monitoring their fleet communications.
They're using some kind of quantum entanglement network, faster than light communication. They're definitely calling for reinforcements." "How many reinforcements?" Chen asked.
"Unknown, but they're treating this as a high-priority situation."
"Whatever they're bringing, it's going to be big." Chen nodded, already formulating plans. "Park, how long until we can establish communication with Earth?" "With our damaged systems?" "Maybe 3 days if we cannibalize parts from non-essential systems."
"Do it. We need to warn Earth about what's coming." "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out, "I should mention something.
When I was setting up the overload sequence, I took detailed scans of their boarding party.
Their technology is definitely superior to ours, but not impossibly so. Their armor seems to be some kind of smart material, but it still follows basic physics.
Their weapons are plasma-based, powerful but with obvious heat dissipation issues."
Chen felt a spark of hope.
"You're saying they're not gods after all?"
"No, ma'am. Just very advanced.
But human ingenuity has overcome technological disadvantages before."
She looked out at the alien fleet, her mind already racing with possibilities. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had shown humanity that they existed, that they could be fought, and, most importantly, that they could be surprised.
"All right, people," Chen announced to her crew.
"We've got 3 days to figure out how to send a warning to Earth, keep 12,000 colonists alive, and somehow survive whatever's coming our way."
"Any suggestions?"
"Ma'am," Park said with a nervous laugh, "I think we just declared war on an interstellar empire with a crippled colony ship."
Chen's smile was fierce.
"No, Park.
We just gave them their first lesson in why you never underestimate humans.
And something tells me they're about to learn a lot more lessons before this is over." Outside the viewports, the alien fleet maintained its vigil, waiting for orders from their high command. They had encountered something unprecedented in their 10,000 years of conquest, a species that treated certain death not as an end, but as a beginning. They had no idea that this was exactly how humanity preferred it. The war room deep beneath the Pentagon had seen many crises, but nothing quite like this. General Marcus Stone stood before a wall of monitors displaying data that should have been impossible. Faster-than-light communication signals from humanity's first and only interstellar colony ship, reporting contact with a hostile alien empire.
"Run it again," Stone ordered, his weathered face grim as granite.
The recording played for the 5th time, Captain Chen's voice crackling through the speakers despite the impossible distance. "This is HSS New Horizon to Earth Command.
We have made contact with a hostile alien force calling itself the Hegemony. They consider us primitive and have classified humanity as an anomalous threat.
Expect massive retaliation forces to arrive in Sol system within weeks, possibly days.
Recommend immediate implementation of Fortress Protocol. Humanity is now at war."
The room fell silent. Around the table sat the most powerful military and political leaders on Earth, generals, admirals, intelligence directors, and scientists who had spent their careers preparing for theoretical scenarios that had just become terrifyingly real.
"How certain are we that this transmission is genuine?" asked Director Sarah Park of the Global Intelligence Agency, her voice carefully controlled.
Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Earth's foremost expert in quantum communications, leaned forward.
"The quantum entanglement signature is definitely from the New Horizon. Captain Chen included authentication codes that only she would know.
This is real." President Martinez rubbed his temples, the weight of 8 billion lives suddenly feeling very heavy.
"General Stone, in your professional opinion, how prepared are we for this kind of threat?"
Stone's laugh was bitter.
"Mr. President, we've spent the last 50 years building a military designed to fight other humans.
We have orbital defense platforms, missile networks, and fleets that can project power throughout the Sol system. But everything we have was designed assuming our enemies would follow the same basic rules of physics and tactics that we do." He activated the holographic display, showing Earth's current military assets. "We have 12 battle stations in high orbit, 36 destroyers, 8 battlecruisers, and the 2 dreadnoughts Victory and Defiance. Our asteroid mining facilities could theoretically be converted to weapons platforms, and we have approximately 200,000 trained military personnel across all branches.
And how does that compare to what Captain Chen reported? Martinez asked.
Sir, based on her description, a single alien ship could probably destroy our entire orbital defense grid. They have technology that's centuries ahead of ours, and, apparently, an empire that spans multiple star systems. The room erupted in worried murmurs until Admiral Chan raised her hand for silence.
But, there's something else to consider. Captain Chen's report mentioned that the aliens were surprised by human behavior.
They expected us to surrender when faced with superior firepower.
Your point, Admiral? My point is that they've never fought humans before.
They may have superior technology, but they don't understand how we fight.
That gives us an advantage they won't expect.
General Stone nodded slowly.
The Admiral's right.
Every war college teaches the same basic principle: know your enemy. But this works both ways.
They don't know us either.
Dr. Marcus Chen, no relation to the Admiral but humanity's leading expert in military tactics, stood up.
I've been analyzing the transmission data. Captain Chen mentioned that the aliens classified us as an anomalous threat. That's significant.
It suggests they have categories for different types of resistance, but we don't fit any of their existing models.
Explain, President Martinez ordered. Think about it from their perspective.
They've apparently been conquering civilizations for thousands of years. They probably have protocols for dealing with different types of resistance: technological, biological, even psychological.
But humans seem to have broken their classification system entirely.
Director Park leaned forward.
What exactly did we do that was so different?
Chen smiled grimly. Captain Chen threatened to blow up her own ship rather than surrender.
From an alien perspective that follows logical, mathematical models of warfare, that's completely insane. You don't sacrifice your most valuable assets for no strategic gain.
But there was a strategic gain, Stone interjected.
She bought time and information. The aliens withdrew and called for reinforcements instead of simply destroying the ship.
That tells us they're not mindless killing machines. They can be surprised, confused, and even cautious.
Admiral Chen activated another display showing strategic projections.
I've been working on something since the transmission arrived.
If we're going to face an enemy with vastly superior technology, we need to fight asymmetrically.
We need to be unpredictable, irrational, and completely willing to sacrifice everything if necessary. The display showed Earth's solar system with various tactical overlays.
Here's what I propose.
We don't try to match their firepower, that's impossible. Instead, we make every single engagement cost them more than they expect.
We make them question whether conquering humanity is worth the price. President Martinez studied the projections.
You're talking about guerrilla warfare on a cosmic scale.
Exactly.
But, first, we need to survive their initial assault. And, for that, we need to think like humans, not like rational military strategists.
Stone frowned. Meaning?
Meaning we prepare for scenarios that no sane military would consider. We rig our own cities to explode if occupied.
We program our ships to ram enemy vessels even if it means certain death.
We make it clear that every victory against humanity will cost them dearly.
The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
They were discussing the complete militarization of human civilization, turning every man, woman, and child into a potential combatant in a war for species survival.
There's something else, Dr. Hayes interjected.
The quantum communication network that the aliens use, we've detected similar signatures coming from multiple directions.
They're not just calling for reinforcements for the New Horizon situation.
They're mobilizing forces from across their empire.
How many forces? Martinez asked.
Unknown, but the energy signatures suggest hundreds of ships.
Maybe thousands. Stone stood up and walked to the main display. Then, we have very little time.
I recommend immediate implementation of Operation Fortress, full militarization of the Sol system, conscription of all available personnel, and conversion of civilian infrastructure to military purposes.
That's essentially martial law, Director Park pointed out.
Director, in approximately 72 hours, an alien armada is going to arrive in our solar system with the intention of enslaving or exterminating the human race. Martial law is the least of our concerns.
President Martinez looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leadership.
Each one showed the same mix of fear and determination that he felt in his own chest.
What about the colonies on Mars and Europa? Admiral Chan pulled up another display.
I've already sent coded transmissions to all outer system installations.
They're going dark and implementing guerrilla protocols.
If Earth falls, they'll become the resistance.
And if we somehow survive the initial assault? Stone's smile was cold.
Then, we start teaching these aliens exactly why humanity survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars.
We show them what happens when you threaten a species that's been fighting for survival since we first stood upright. The president nodded slowly. Do it. Implement Fortress Protocol immediately.
And send a reply to Captain Chen, tell her that Earth stands ready. As the meeting broke up, each member racing to implement humanity's desperate defense plans, none of them noticed the small detail that would prove crucial in the coming days. Dr. Hayes had mentioned detecting alien communication signatures from multiple directions, but one of those signatures had come from within the Sol system itself.
The aliens weren't just coming.
They were already here. 12 hours later, every human military installation in the Sol system went to full alert as sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing at the edge of the system. The alien fleet that emerged from faster-than-light travel was beyond anything humanity had imagined.
300 vessels, each larger than Earth's biggest space stations, arranged themselves in perfect battle formations.
At their center was a ship so massive it defied comprehension, a mobile space station the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But, as the alien fleet advanced toward Earth, they detected something that gave their commanders pause. Instead of the panicked evacuation they expected, every human installation was broadcasting the same message on all frequencies: "This is Earth Command to approaching hegemony forces.
You have entered Sol System, humanity's home territory. We know who you are,
We know why you're here, and we know what you're capable of.
We also know what we're capable of. You want to see humanity's military? You're looking at it. All of it.
Every ship, every station, every human being in this system is prepared to fight you to the last breath.
You think we're primitive? You think we're weak? Come and find out. Earth Command out."
The transmission repeated continuously, broadcast from every human facility simultaneously. But it wasn't the message that worried the alien commanders, it was what their sensors detected accompanying it. Every civilian installation in the Sol system was running at full power. Space elevators hummed with activity as cargo containers moved toward orbit. Asteroid mining platforms had been converted into weapons factories. Even pleasure cruise ships had been refitted with improvised weapons systems. Most disturbing of all, the humans were moving their entire civilian population to fortified positions. They weren't evacuating, they were preparing every man, woman, and child to fight.
The alien fleet's supreme commander, Hegemon Vextar, studied the tactical displays from his flagship bridge.
In 10,000 years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. Species typically responded to the arrival of a hegemony fleet in one of three ways: immediate surrender, desperate attempts at negotiation, or futile military resistance that collapsed within hours. But the humans appeared to be doing all three simultaneously while also preparing for what could only be described as species-wide suicide attacks.
"Communications," Vextar commanded, his forearms gesturing at the tactical displays. "What is your analysis of their military capabilities?"
Supreme Hegemon, his communications officer replied, "Their technology is primitive by our standards, but their deployment patterns are unprecedented. They appear to have armed their entire population and are prepared to turn every piece of infrastructure into a weapon."
"And their naval forces?" "Minimal. Perhaps 50 combat vessels of various classes, none larger than our escort frigates. However,"
the officer paused, clearly struggling to interpret the data.
"Speak."
"They are not attempting to maximize their defensive advantages. Instead of keeping their fleet in orbit around their homeworld, they're advancing to meet us in open space.
It's tactically suicidal." Vexstar studied the human fleet formations. The aliens were right, it made no sense. The humans had massive orbital defense platforms that could provide covering fire, but they were abandoning those advantages to engage in open space combat where they would be completely outgunned. It's a trap, his tactical advisor suggested. They must have weapons we haven't detected.
No, Vexstar said slowly, his multiple eyes focusing on the advancing human ships.
It's something else. Something we've never encountered before.
He activated the long-range communications array and sent a message directly to the human fleet. Human vessels, you are vastly outnumbered and technologically inferior. Withdraw to your homeworld and surrender.
Your resistance is futile. The response came immediately from the lead human ship. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the human defense fleet. We're not resisting. We're attacking. All ships, weapons free. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. The human fleet accelerated toward the alien armada with suicidal determination.
Their primitive fusion drives left brilliant trails against the darkness of space as they charged into battle against impossible odds. Vexstar watched in fascination and growing unease. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't trying to win, they were trying to hurt the hegemony as much as possible before they died. All ships, he commanded, maintain formation and prepare for engagement.
But use minimum necessary force. I want to capture as many of these humans as possible. I need to understand what we're dealing with.
As the two fleets closed for battle, neither side knew that this first engagement would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the moment when war itself changed forever. The hegemony was about to learn that sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is one with nothing left to lose. The first shots of humanity's war for survival were fired at 1432 Earth Standard Time, when the human destroyer Indomitable launched every missile in its arsenal at the approaching hegemony fleet. Captain Elena Vesquez knew her ship wouldn't survive the next 10 minutes, but that wasn't the point. The point was to show these alien conquerors exactly what they were dealing with. Direct hit on their lead cruiser, her weapons officer reported with grim satisfaction. Their shields are down 15%.
Vasquez nodded.
15% wasn't much, but it was something.
It meant the aliens could be hurt. Continue firing.
All ships, follow attack pattern Delta.
Don't try to survive, try to hurt them.
The hegemony fleet responded with calculated precision, their plasma cannons reaching out across the void to cripple the charging human vessels. The first human ship to die was the frigate Courage, her hull cracking like an eggshell under alien fire. But, even as she died, her captain managed one final act of defiance, ramming his ship directly into the nearest alien cruiser. The explosion that followed lit up the darkness between worlds. When the plasma clouds cleared, both ships were gone, but the message was unmistakable: humans would take their enemies with them. On the bridge of his flagship, Hegemon Vexstar watched the tactical display with growing alarm. The humans were fighting with a ferocity he had never encountered. Their ships were individually weak, but they fought like a pack of predators, coordinating attacks and sacrificing themselves to create opportunities for their allies.
Status report, he commanded. We've destroyed 12 human vessels, his tactical officer reported.
But we've lost 3 cruisers and 5 escorts.
Their casualties are acceptable. Ours are unprecedented. Vexstar's 4 eyes narrowed.
In most engagements, the hegemony could conquer entire fleets without losing a single ship. The fact that these primitive humans had managed to destroy multiple hegemony vessels was more than unprecedented, it was impossible.
How are they doing this?
They're not following any logical tactical doctrine, the tactical officer replied, his voice strained with confusion. They attack in waves, using their destroyed ships as weapons.
When a vessel is critically damaged, instead of trying to escape, they ram us.
Their commanders are deliberately sacrificing their own forces to maximize damage to ours.
On the human side, Admiral Chen watched her fleet being systematically destroyed while inflicting impossible casualties on the enemy.
The Defiance had taken her entire missile complement and converted them into kinetic kill vehicles, ramming them into alien ships at relativistic speeds. The Victory was using her own wreckage as shrapnel, detonating sections of her hull to create debris clouds that damaged nearby enemy vessels.
"Admiral," her communications officer called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the Hegemony flagship. They want to parley." Chen almost laughed. A parley?
They had started this engagement with 58 human ships.
36 were already destroyed or disabled.
But the aliens had lost 12 vessels of their own, and their remaining ships were showing damage from the constant barrage of kinetic weapons and ramming attacks.
"Put them through."
The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an alien vessel. The creature looking back at her was unlike anything from Earth's imagination, a being that looked like it had been designed by a committee of nightmares. Multiple arms, crystalline eyes, and skin that seemed to shift between different textures.
"I am Hegemon Vexstar," the creature said, the universal translator making his voice sound oddly formal. "I command this fleet. You have fought with honor, but your defeat is inevitable. Surrender now, and your species will be granted a place within the hegemony." Chen studied the alien leader, noting the damage visible on his bridge behind him.
Sparking consoles, flickering lights, and crew members moving with the urgency of beings who had just discovered they weren't invincible.
"Hegemon Vexstar," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, and I speak for humanity.
We appreciate the offer, but we're going to have to decline.
Admiral Chen, you have lost 60% of your fleet. Further resistance is futile." "You're right," Chen admitted.
"We've lost more than half our ships."
"But, you know what's funny? We expected to lose them all."
"The fact that we still have any ships left means we're doing better than planned." Vexstar's posture shifted, his multiple arms gesturing in what might have been confusion.
"You expected total defeat? Hegemon, you don't understand humans at all, do you? We didn't come out here to win this battle. We came out here to teach you a lesson." "What lesson?"
Chen's smile was cold as the void. "That conquering humanity is going to cost you more than you ever imagined.
You've lost 12 ships fighting our primitive fleet. How many more are you willing to lose?
Your remaining forces cannot significantly damage our fleet."
"Can't they?"
Chen activated a tactical display visible to both fleets.
"Let me show you something interesting. See those energy signatures throughout the solar system? Those aren't defensive installations, they're bombs.
Massive fusion devices attached to every major asteroid, space station, and orbital facility." Vexstar's crew began working frantically at their consoles, confirming what Chen was telling them.
"If you advance on Earth," Chen continued, "we'll detonate every one of them. The resulting debris cloud will turn this entire system into a shooting gallery that will destroy any ship trying to navigate through it. Including yours. You would destroy your own infrastructure? In a heartbeat."
But that's not the best part. The best part is what happens after you somehow fight your way through all that debris and reach Earth itself. Chen activated another display showing the massive energy signatures emanating from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. Every human settlement is now armed with weapons designed for one purpose: to make you pay for every meter of ground you take.
"We've turned our entire civilization into one massive booby trap. You want Earth? You can have it.
But it's going to cost you your entire fleet, and when you're done, you'll own a radioactive wasteland populated by humans who would rather die than serve."
The bridge of Chen's flagship shuddered as another plasma blast found its mark.
Warning lights flashed as life support systems strained to keep up with the damage. "And here's the really beautiful part," Chen continued, ignoring the destruction around her.
"This isn't even our real military. This is just what we threw together in 3 days after learning you existed. Our real defenses are still coming."
That was a lie, but Vexstar didn't need to know that.
"Impossible.
Our intelligence indicates you have no interstellar capability beyond the single colony ship."
"Your intelligence is incomplete. You see one colony ship and assume that's all we have? Did it occur to you that maybe we sent that ship to see who else was out here? That maybe humanity has been preparing for this contact for decades?" Chen could see the uncertainty in Vexstar's posture.
The hegemony had conquered dozens of species, but always with overwhelming force and minimal resistance. The idea that a seemingly primitive species could inflict such casualties was challenging everything they thought they knew about warfare. I don't believe you, Vextar said, but his voice lacked conviction.
You don't have to believe me.
But ask yourself this: how many of your ships are you willing to lose finding out? You came here expecting easy conquest, and instead you've lost more vessels in one engagement than you probably lost in your last 10 conquests combined.
The alien fleet had stopped advancing. Chen could see them holding position while their commanders tried to process what they were dealing with.
Admiral, her weapons officer called out, the Prometheus is making her final run. Chen watched as the badly damaged human battlecruiser accelerated toward the center of the alien formation, her captain having loaded the ship's entire ammunition supply into her forward torpedo tubes.
The Prometheus died in a blaze of glory that took 2 alien cruisers with her. 16 human ships left, Chen announced to Vextar.
But we just cost you another 2 cruisers.
How's that cost-benefit analysis looking now?
Vextar was silent for long moments, his crew clearly reporting damage assessments and casualty figures. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note Chen hadn't heard before: uncertainty.
What do you want? Simple. Turn around and leave.
Go back to your superiors and tell them that humanity is not prey. We're predators. And if you want a war with us, we'll give you one that makes this look like a friendly greeting.
And if I refuse?
Chen gestured to her remaining ships, all of them badly damaged but still fighting. Then, we finish this conversation with nuclear fire. My remaining captains have orders to ram your flagship if I'm killed.
Are you prepared to die to prove a point, Hegemon?
For the first time in his long career, Vextar found himself facing an opponent who seemed genuinely unconcerned with their own survival. Every tactical model, every strategic algorithm, every piece of conventional wisdom suggested that beings faced with extinction would eventually choose survival over defiance.
But humans appeared to operate by completely different rules. This engagement is concluded, he announced to his fleet.
All ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance. Maintain defensive positions but cease offensive operations.
Chen nodded.
Wise choice.
But, Hegemon? This was just the opening act.
If you think what you've seen here was impressive, wait until you see what humanity can do when we're really angry. The alien fleet pulled back, maintaining their blockade but no longer advancing. In the space between the two forces, the wreckage of 42 human ships drifted among the debris of 14 alien vessels. It wasn't a victory by any conventional measure. Humanity had lost more ships, more lives, more resources. But, as news of the engagement spread throughout the galaxy, carried by the hegemony's own communication networks, one message became crystal clear: humanity was not like other species. They didn't fight to win, they fought to make their enemies regret starting the fight in the first place. And, somewhere in the depths of space, monitoring the battle through sensors humanity didn't know existed, other alien civilizations began to take notice of the strange new species that had just bloodied the nose of the galaxy's most feared empire. The hegemony had come to Sol System expecting another easy conquest. Instead, they had just awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 3 days after the Battle of Sol's Edge, as human historians would later name it, the ripple effects were spreading across the galaxy faster than anyone had anticipated. In the hidden strongholds of a dozen suppressed civilizations, beings who had given up hope of ever seeing freedom began to whisper about the impossible news filtering through the hegemony's communication networks. The humans had made the hegemony bleed. On the fortress world of Kepler 442b, in a prison complex that held the remnants of the Thesian resistance, former Admiral ZYX Thera pressed her scaled face against the energy bars of her cell. The news had reached them through smuggled communication devices that the guards didn't know existed. 14 ships, she whispered to her cellmate, former General Corthazy. These humans destroyed 14 hegemony vessels with primitive technology. Corthazy, whose people had been enslaved for 3 centuries, shook his massive head in disbelief. Impossible. My people had quantum weapons and reality manipulators when the hegemony came for us. We lasted 6 hours. The reports are confirmed from multiple sources, ZYX Thera insisted. More than that, the hegemony fleet withdrew. The humans are still free. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in prison camps, slave colonies, and resistance hideouts. Species that had been broken by the hegemony's overwhelming power were learning that someone had finally shown them to be vulnerable. But the most significant reaction was happening in the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. The Council, a loose alliance of civilizations that existed in the shadow of hegemony power, had spent centuries trying to maintain their independence through careful diplomacy and strategic appeasement. Chancellor Vorth of the Altarian Republic stood before the assembled delegates, his tentacles writhing with barely contained excitement as he read from the intelligence reports. Honored delegates, we have confirmation from 17 independent sources. The human military, using technology at least 2 centuries behind our own, has inflicted casualties on a hegemony assault fleet that exceed anything seen in recorded galactic history. The chamber erupted in a dozen different languages as delegates from various species expressed their shock, disbelief, and hope. Ambassador Kelth of the Centaurian Federation stood, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights in complex patterns that indicated extreme agitation.
Chancellor, this must be some kind of error in the reports.
No species has successfully resisted the hegemony for more than a few hours.
These humans have been fighting them for days. Ambassador Kelth raises a valid point, came the gravelly voice of General Fox from the Regelian Military Consortium.
But our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures from the Sol system.
Whatever's happening there, it's real. Chancellor Vorth activated the chamber's holographic display, showing what their long-range sensors had detected. These are the confirmed energy signatures from the engagement.
You can see the characteristic plasma bursts from hegemony weapons, but also the signatures of approximately 42 human vessels being destroyed. 42 ships destroyed hardly seems like a victory, Ambassador Kelth observed.
You're missing the critical detail, Vorth replied. Those 42 human vessels destroyed 14 hegemony ships in the process. The exchange ratio is completely unprecedented. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For millennia, the hegemony had maintained control through the simple mathematics of overwhelming superiority. They lost, on average, 1 ship for every 1,000 they faced. The idea that a primitive species could achieve a 3-to-1 exchange ratio was paradigm-shifting. There's more, Vorth continued. Our intelligence networks within Hegemony Space report that Hegemon Vexstar has requested massive reinforcements from the core worlds. Not the usual follow-up fleet to mop up resistance, but a full battle group with siege equipment. For one star system? General Fox asked, his multiple eyes widening.
According to our sources, Vexstar's report to High Command included the phrase anomalous military doctrine requiring immediate strategic reassessment. In 10,000 years of hegemony expansion, no conquered species has ever required strategic reassessment. Ambassador Pryth of the Vegan Trade Alliance, whose species had survived through economic integration rather than military resistance, spoke up.
What exactly are these humans doing that's so different?
Vorth pulled up tactical analyses based on their sensor readings.
From what we can determine, they're fighting with complete disregard for conventional tactical doctrine.
They use their ships as weapons even after they're destroyed.
They ram enemy vessels with deliberate intent to cause mutual destruction. Most significantly, they appear to prefer death to surrender.
That's not unusual, General Fox pointed out. Many species fight to the death when faced with extinction.
No, General, you misunderstand.
They don't fight to the death as a last resort.
They choose death as a tactical option.
Their commanders deliberately sacrifice their own vessels to inflict maximum damage on the enemy.
It's not desperation, it's doctrine.
The chamber buzzed with conversation as delegates tried to process this information. The hegemony had conquered the galaxy by following predictable patterns: overwhelming force, minimal losses, quick surrender from rational opponents who preferred slavery to extinction.
But humans appeared to operate by completely different rules. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, those same humans were preparing for the next phase of what they now knew would be a prolonged war.
The temporary ceasefire with Vexstar's fleet had given them precious time to implement the most ambitious crash military program in human history.
On Earth, President Martinez stood in the newly constructed war room, watching as reports flooded in from every corner of human space.
The asteroid belt had been turned into a massive weapons factory. Mars was now one giant military base.
The outer colonies were constructing hidden bunkers and guerrilla supply depots. Status report, Martinez ordered.
General Stone activated the holographic display showing the Sol system's new configuration.
We've completed the first phase of the Fortress Protocol.
Every major asteroid now has fusion devices attached.
All civilian infrastructure has been converted to dual military-civilian use. Most importantly, we've armed the entire population. How many combatants? 8.3 billion on Earth alone. Another 400 million across the outer colonies. Every human being over the age of 16 is now trained in basic combat and sabotage techniques. Martinez nodded grimly. And if they break through our outer defenses? Then, they'll face the most comprehensive urban warfare campaign in history.
Every city, every town, every settlement is prepared for siege warfare. We've stockpiled enough weapons and supplies for a century of resistance.
Dr. Chen looked up from his analysis station. Mr. President, there's something else you need to know. We've been monitoring hegemony communications, and we're detecting massive fleet movements from their core territories. How massive? Conservative estimate? 5,000 ships.
They're treating Sol system as a high-priority military objective requiring full-scale invasion. The room fell silent.
5,000 ships made their previous engagement look like a minor skirmish. Any good news? Martinez asked dryly.
Stone smiled grimly.
Actually, yes.
We've been in contact with Captain Chen on the New Horizon, and she's discovered something interesting about hegemony military doctrine. He pulled up tactical analyses based on Chen's observations.
They've spent 10,000 years fighting wars of quick conquest.
Their entire military structure is built around overwhelming initial strikes that break enemy resistance in hours or days.
They're not equipped for prolonged warfare against an opponent who refuses to surrender. Meaning? Meaning they're probably as worried about this as we are. They've never faced an enemy who could hurt them consistently over time.
Their logistics, their training, their entire strategic doctrine is built around short, decisive campaigns.
Admiral Chan leaned forward. We also have another advantage they don't expect. News of our resistance is spreading through their empire.
Our intelligence sources indicate that other conquered species are starting to ask questions about hegemony invincibility.
You think we might gain allies? Possibly.
But, more importantly, we're forcing them to fight a war on multiple fronts. They have to maintain security across dozens of star systems while committing massive forces to subdue us.
That spreads their fleet thin. Martinez looked around the room at humanity's military leadership. What are our chances? Of victory?
Stone shook his head.
Minimal. They still outgun us by orders of magnitude. Of survival?
Better. If we can make conquering humanity cost more than it's worth, they might negotiate.
And if we can inspire other species to resist.
Then, we change the balance of power in the galaxy, Martinez finished.
How long until their reinforcements arrive? 2 weeks, possibly 3. Martinez nodded. Then, we have 2 weeks to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of.
I want every defensive position strengthened, every weapon stockpiled, and every human ready to fight. As Earth prepared for the greatest battle in human history, the news of their resistance continued spreading through the galaxy. On a dozen worlds, resistance movements that had been dormant for centuries began stirring. In the hidden bases of the Thesian rebels, weapons caches were being uncovered. The Centaurian underground started planning sabotage operations against hegemony installations. Most significantly, in the deepest regions of space, ancient civilizations that had retreated rather than face hegemony conquest began monitoring the Sol system with intense interest. The ethereal collective, beings of pure energy who had withdrawn from physical space millennia ago, sent probes to observe these remarkable humans who fought like devils and refused to yield. The Cthara Archive, an artificial intelligence network that had been dormant for 5,000 years, began processing the implications of a species that treated warfare not as a means to an end, but as an art form in itself. Even the mysterious predecessors, whose ruins dotted the galaxy and whose disappearance remained unexplained, left subtle signs that they too were watching humanity's struggle with something approaching approval. But, perhaps most importantly, on the prison world of Kepler 442b, former Admiral ZYX was using the smuggled communication equipment to send a message that would reach human space in 17 days. "Humans of Sol System," she transmitted, "this is ZYX of the Thesian Resistance. We have heard of your battle against the hegemony. You are not alone. When the time comes, you will have allies. Hold fast. The galaxy is watching, and, for the first time in millennia, we have hope." The message would never reach Earth. Hegemony security forces discovered the transmission and executed ZYX before it could be sent. But, the fact that she tried to send it, that a being who had given up on freedom was willing to die to encourage the humans, proved something fundamental had changed in the galactic order. Humanity had lit a spark that was spreading through the darkness of hegemony oppression. They had shown that the greatest empire in galactic history could bleed, could be hurt, could be forced to withdraw. And, across 1,000 worlds, beings who had forgotten what it meant to be free were beginning to remember. The second battle for humanity's survival began not with the thunder of weapons, but with the eerie silence of space being twisted by forces beyond human comprehension. 5,000 hegemony ships materialized at the edge of the Sol System in perfect formation, their combined mass creating gravitational distortions that registered on Earth's seismic monitoring stations. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, the Terra Defiant, watching as the alien armada deployed with mathematical precision. Behind her, every human in the Sol System waited for the order that would either save their species or end it in glorious defiance. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Hegemony command ship." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing not Hegemon Vextar, but a new figure that radiated authority and ancient malevolence. This being was larger than any alien they had encountered, its multiple arms ending in appendages that seemed to blur between flesh and living metal. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled to convey the weight of its words. "I am Supreme Hegemon Mordeth, commander of the Eternal Fleet and architect of 1,000 conquered worlds. I have studied your species extensively since our initial encounter. You have proven more resilient than anticipated." Chen straightened, meeting the alien's gaze directly. "Supreme Hegemon Mordeth. I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking for humanity. We appreciate the recognition, but we're not impressed by your fleet size. We've had 2 weeks to prepare, and we've made good use of the time. Admiral Chen, your defiance has been noted and will be remembered in the archives of conquest. However, your resistance ends today. This fleet carries weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Surrender now, and your species will be granted the honor of serving the hegemony. Continue your futile resistance, and humanity will be erased from existence." Chen smiled, and something in that expression made even the ancient alien pause. "You know what's funny about ultimatums, Supreme Hegemon? They only work if the other side cares about surviving. Let me show you what we've been doing with those 2 weeks." The tactical display activated, showing the Sol System's new configuration. What the aliens saw defied every conventional understanding of defensive warfare. Earth wasn't just fortified, it had been turned into the galaxy's largest weapon. "See those energy signatures orbiting Earth?" Chen pointed to the massive constructs now surrounding humanity's homeworld. "Those aren't space stations. They're focused fusion bombs, each one capable of creating a miniature star. We call it the Sol Ring. If you destroy Earth, you trigger a chain reaction that will turn this entire system into a supernova." Mordeth's posture shifted as his fleet sensors confirmed what Chen was telling him. "You would destroy your own star system?" "Without hesitation. But that's not the best part. The best part is what we've learned about your empire while you were gathering your forces." Chen activated another display, showing star charts that extended far beyond the Sol System. "Your hegemony controls approximately 3,000 star systems, correct? Your industrial base produces ships faster than any single species can destroy them. Your military doctrine relies on overwhelming force and quick victory. Your analysis is correct but irrelevant." "Is it?" Because while you were massing this fleet, we sent out some visitors of our own.
The alien's multiple eyes focused intently on Chen. Impossible. You have no interstellar capability. We didn't. Past tense.
You see, when you left our colony ship New Horizon intact, you made a crucial mistake. Captain Sarah Chen, my sister, by the way, had 3 months to study your technology while you were calling for reinforcements. 3 months to figure out how your faster-than-light drives work.
Chen activated a new display showing energy signatures from across hegemony space. We reverse-engineered your technology and built our own FTL drives.
Crude, dangerous, probably suicidal, but functional.
We've sent human strike teams to 47 hegemony worlds.
Impossible, Mordeth repeated, but his crew was frantically working at their stations, clearly receiving reports that confirmed Chen's claims. Each team carried a simple message and a demonstration. The message was, the humans are fighting the hegemony and winning. The demonstration was usually the destruction of a major hegemony installation.
Chen's smile widened as reports continued flowing into the alien command ship. I'm guessing you're getting some interesting status updates right about now. Mordeth's crew was in chaos, multiple officers reporting simultaneously.
The Supreme Hegemon raised one massive appendage for silence.
Admiral Chen, even if your sabotage teams exist, they cannot significantly impact the hegemony's military capacity.
You're right, Chen agreed.
47 strike teams can't cripple your empire.
But they can do something much more important. They can prove that humans can reach any hegemony world, at any time, and hurt you there.
She paused, letting that sink in.
But, more importantly, they delivered a message to every enslaved species in your territory. They learned that the mighty hegemony can be bloodied, that your ships can be destroyed, that your commanders can be forced to retreat.
And what has that accomplished?
Revolution. The word hung in space between them like a physical thing. On cue, new energy signatures began appearing throughout the system, not hegemony ships, but vessels of a dozen different designs, emerging from hyperspace in ragged formations. Supreme Hegemon, Chen announced, allow me to introduce the Free Galaxy Alliance. Representatives of every species your empire has ever enslaved, united for the first time in common cause. The alien fleet's sensors were going crazy as more ships continued arriving. The Sien battlecruisers, Centaurian fighter swarms, vegan cargo ships converted to improvised weapons platforms, and species whose names humans had never learned but whose hatred of the hegemony burned across interstellar space.
We estimate about 1,200 ships, Chen continued conversationally.
Not enough to match your fleet in direct combat, but more than enough to make this very interesting. Mordeth's command crew was reporting massive system failures across hegemony space as slave worlds erupted in coordinated rebellion. The reports were coming too fast to process, entire sectors going dark, supply lines severed, garrison fleets requesting immediate reinforcement. This is impossible, Mordeth said, but his voice lacked conviction. No single species could coordinate such widespread rebellion.
You're right again. No single species could do this. But humans didn't do this alone. We just lit the fuse.
Every species you've conquered has been waiting for someone to prove that resistance was possible.
We proved it, and now they're choosing freedom. Admiral Chen activated the final display, showing the real scope of what humanity had accomplished. Across hegemony space, red markers indicated systems in open revolt. Yellow markers showed systems where rebellion was spreading.
Green markers showed systems still under hegemony control.
There was a lot more red than green.
Here's what's going to happen, Supreme Hegemon, Chen said with icy calm. You can attack us with your fleet and probably win. You might even survive our soul ring and the combined firepower of humanity and our new allies. But, while you're fighting us, your empire is burning. Every day you spend trying to conquer Sol System is another day your subject worlds slip away from your control. Mordeth was silent for long moments, his ancient mind processing tactical situations he had never encountered in millennia of conquest.
However, Chen continued, we're prepared to offer an alternative. What alternative?
Withdraw from Sol System. Recognize human independence and the independence of any species that chooses to leave your empire. In exchange, we stop actively fomenting revolution and focus on building our own civilization.
And if I refuse? Chen's smile became predatory. Then, we show you what humans are really capable of when we stop holding back. You think what you've seen so far is impressive? You think 47 sabotage teams and some coordinated rebellions are the extent of human military innovation?
She gestured to the approaching fleet of liberated species. Every one of those ships out there is crewed by beings who have waited centuries for the chance to strike back at the hegemony. They know they're probably going to die in the next few hours. And they're singing songs of joy because they finally get to die fighting instead of dying as slaves.
The tactical situation was unlike anything in recorded galactic history.
The hegemony fleet still held overwhelming advantage in firepower and technology, but they were facing an enemy that had turned warfare itself into something unrecognizable.
You have 1 minute to decide, Chen announced.
Fight us and lose your empire while you're distracted, or negotiate and keep what you can still hold. Mordeth looked at the tactical displays showing his crumbling empire, then at the mixed human-alien fleet that was advancing with the same suicidal determination that had bloodied Vexstar's forces. For the first time in his long existence, he faced an opponent who had changed the rules of the game entirely. "Admiral Chen," he said finally, "you have created chaos. The natural order of the galaxy has been disrupted."
The natural order was slavery and oppression. We prefer chaos. Very well. The hegemony withdraws from Sol system.
Your species' independence is acknowledged.
But this matter is not concluded. We wouldn't expect it to be.
But next time you decide to test humanity, remember what we accomplished with primitive technology and 2 weeks of preparation. Imagine what we'll be capable of after a few years of peace to build our strength. The hegemony fleet began its withdrawal, moving with the same precise formations they had used to arrive. But everyone watching knew that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy.
The empire that had ruled unchallenged for 10 millennia had been forced to negotiate with its enemies. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, the mixed fleet of liberated worlds moved into formation around Earth. Ships from a dozen species, united by their hatred of oppression and their admiration for the insane courage of humanity.
"Admiral," her communications officer called out, "I'm receiving messages from the Allied fleet.
They want to know what happens now."
Chen looked out at the ships surrounding Earth, former enemies now allies, former slaves now free beings, all united by humanity's refusal to accept the inevitable. "Tell them," she said, "that now we build something new. A galaxy where species choose their own fate, where technology serves freedom instead of conquest, and where any empire that threatens the innocent has to face not just one species, but all of us together." She paused, thinking of her sister Sarah still stranded in the New Horizon, of the billions of humans who had been ready to die rather than surrender, of the countless alien beings who had chosen hope over despair. "And tell them that this is only the beginning.
The hegemony still controls thousands of worlds, still enslaves billions of beings.
We've won the right to exist, but the real war, the war for galactic freedom, that war is just getting started." In the depths of space, monitoring stations that had been silent for millennia began transmitting again. Ancient civilizations that had retreated from galactic affairs watched with renewed interest as a new alliance of species began planning their next moves. The hegemony had dominated the galaxy through overwhelming force and the assumption that all rational beings would eventually submit to superior power. But humanity had taught the galaxy a new lesson: sometimes the most dangerous enemy is one who redefines what it means to be rational. And sometimes, the greatest victories come not from winning battles, but from inspiring others to believe that victory is possible. The war for humanity's survival was over. The war for galactic freedom was about to begin.